Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Dr. Glenn is a clinical psychologist and former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leaving the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Before we get started, if you haven't downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, it's the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with defeatyourcravings.com. And I'm here with a kind-hearted woman named Caitlin, who's agreed to share her experience and strength and wisdom and hope, as well as her trials and struggles and pitfalls and tribulations. I don't really know if that's the right word, but Caitlin said she could share the coaching session with you so that you could all benefit. Right, Caitlin?
Yep.
So give me a little background. Where were you before you found Defeat Your Cravings? What's your life been like with food, and what's the current system doing for you?
I am an endurance athlete. I do a lot of trail running, and I've run a handful of marathons, mainly really involved in open water swimming and doing some really, really big swims. I actually got to swim the Santa Barbara Channel this week, which was very exciting. When I started doing all of these endurance athletics, it was during COVID. And so it was very much self-directed and mainly coming out of a place of I have nothing else to do with my time. So I'm just going to start running and swimming a ton. And it really came from a place of joy. And what followed with doing all these activities, I started to lose a lot of weight very healthily without really trying. And I felt really, really good about that and was pleased with where I was heading. I just felt really strong. But then at some point, I started to get a little bit more caught up with performance and starting to get a lot of feedback from different people about how I should be fueling my body and these ideas about like race weight and just a lot of different concepts around eating in athletics that I hadn't really had any guidance on before. And what started happening, my problems with binging really started when I was going out to do these huge, huge, huge efforts. And then afterwards, I would realize that I had this like huge calorie deficit, and I would kind of go a little bit crazy eating a lot of sweets and foods that I wouldn't really normally gravitate towards otherwise. And it started to get into this really bad cycle of first eating in response to a lot of activity, but then doing a lot of activity in order to be able to have those binge cycles. I wasn't starting to feel like strong and healthy. With everything I was doing, it kind of felt like I was in this trap where I had to keep doing more and more activity in order to be able to continue to stay at a healthy size and like feel strong and good and do the activities I liked. In this last year, I kind of had a full realization that I was really over exercising and overeating and needed to scale back everything. I guess now I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. I'm trying to figure out exactly how to piece together.
No. It's a really important story because it's not uncommon, but we don't talk about it that much. And it's a common trap that I hear from athletes quite frequently. So
I think the part that I really struggle with, I realized that the foods that I was starting to gravitate towards, like a lot of sweets and candies, I realized another side of it for me is that I think genetically, I come from a family that's very prone to depression and anxiety and mental health struggles. And so when I eat a lot of sugar, I notice my mental health is really not good. It really affects me. It perpetuates these cycles. But I was feeling a little bit trapped because in addition to indulging in these things after having these big endurance events, I started getting more advice from people about how to fuel during races, and it was all like eat quick sugars for energy. And so I was starting to just eat a lot more sugar than I normally do. What kind of changed the game for me was finding that there are some different products out there that are focused on people that have GI issues and don't process a ton of sugar during athletic events very well. So I know you probably don't want like specific product names, but there's a few things that especially channel swimmers, open water swimmers use mixes that don't spike your blood sugar in the same way. And so for me, that was really game changing because I realized that as long as I can avoid having that blood sugar spike, I naturally feed myself very well and gravitate towards healthy foods and I don't go wildly out of control. After listening to your podcast, it really helped me. I like the terminology, the lizard brain, better. So for me, thinking like, okay, there is this like fight or flight instinct that I tap into when I'm doing these wild, crazy adventures. And that is not who I am at my core. That's just a part of like another thing inside me that's trying to just react in the moment. So having these plans ahead of time to be using the fuels that make me feel good, that was really important. And then also just realizing like in general, even outside of these athletic events, the only rule I found that I really need for myself is the amount of sugar I eat because my binging had gotten really out of control in this last year and it was other foods too. It was nuts and sweet or savory things that I never ate normally. And I was just getting to the point where I was like, I don't even know why I'm eating this. I don't like these foods. At first, when I listened to your podcast, I was thinking like, oh, I have to have this rule and this rule. And like I had 20 different rules I came up with. And then there was one moment where you talked about making it as simple as possible. And that was a really eye-opening moment for me because I realized that for me, it all starts with sugar. If I don't have that sugar spike initially, none of the rest follows.
What's your sugar rule?
The rule I set for myself is that I will never have more than 25 grams of refined sugar in a 24-hour period.
And would you mind mentioning the name of one or two of the products in case there are other athletes who are looking for lower glycemic support for those kind of marathon events?
Yeah, the main one I've used is UCAN. And I'm actually not sure about other products, but there's also a whole theory in like trail running about eating real foods while you exercise. So, like fueling on potatoes and peanut butter sandwiches and stuff rather than taking these basically packets of pure sugar.
Do you have the same reaction to potatoes and peanut butter sandwiches?
No,
Did you ever have a peanut butter potato sandwich?
that I have not had.
I'm just kidding. I couldn't help myself.
I think some people do, don't they do like potato chips in them or something? I feel like that's a
They
thing.
probably do. I don't eat that stuff anymore. I used to love that kind of stuff. And by the way, I used to hike all the 48 4,000 footers, so it's not quite the level that you did. I know what you're talking about. Well, so how can I help? What do you want to accomplish now?
I guess the main thing that I'm trying to figure out is the one place I keep coming back to that I'm really struggling with is like in this last round of binging when things got really out of control, like I gained a lot of weight. It's like really affected my confidence and my mental health. That's the main place where I find myself having trouble sticking to this plan because right now I know that if I focus on going out to be social with friends and to do these things, even though I'm not feeling good about where I am right now, that I'll be more likely to stick to this plan. But I have this voice that is saying instead, no, you need to stay home and hide. Isolating is really triggering for wanting to indulge in a lot of those things that will set me off on this cycle.
Yeah, stay at home and strap on a feed bag.
Yes.
What you want help with is overcoming the desire to isolate.
Yes, to isolate. And then the one other piece that I really struggle with, and this is especially tied to the sweets, is that the family I come from and a lot of the different communities I'm in, Food is very much used as a community building. There's a lot of potlucks, and for a long time, I had done a lot of baking for our swim group and stuff. And I know in my mind that I can still have positive experiences with these people and with these groups without partaking in the food. But there's also a part of me, like I have this voice that's telling me that I'm closing myself off or like somehow missing out on the experience if I don't have so and so's cookies or the muffins that somebody's grandma made. And then that feeds together because when I have this fear about or feeling like I can't be social without partaking, that then also leads into the mindset of like, well, I should just stay home by myself. And yeah, that's mainly where I struggle.
Are you avoiding socializing more so because you're afraid of being judged for the weight gain or more so because you're afraid of the food there?
It's both.
It's both. Okay. This is really helpful. I'm just going to articulate what I understand the story and the problem to be, and then we'll dig right into trying to solve it, okay?
That sounds great.
Okay. What happened was that you woke up your lizard brain. The lizard brain is a calorie acquisition machine, and really the fact that you could wake it up like this and that it would behave like this is a sign of what a healthy brain and body that you have. Because in primitive times, the ability of the brain to motivate us to get as many calories as possible for the least effort possible was a survival advantage, so that we would have the energy and wherewithal to go about our day and hunt and gather and defend ourselves and mate and procreate and all the things that require energy to propagate the species. This is actually a demonstration that you've got a healthy, strong brain. You're not sick, you're not broken, there's nothing wrong with you. However, your brain is so good at learning how to do this that when you started doing these ultra performance sports and eating all that high glycemic stuff to fuel your body, you created a neural pathway that your brain doesn't want to forget. It knows that that's there. Thankfully, you figured out the way out, which is to cut the sugar, get a lot of that high glycemic stuff out of the system. People do it in various ways. Some people don't give it up entirely, but you really figured out what the root of the problem was. And I don't know if you read about this or you just kind of intuitively knew that once you started doing compensatory exercise so that you could eat more of this stuff, then you were really feeding the cycle and you started to create a trap. So the fact that you figured out a way to fuel yourself and keep your refined sugar grams down to 25 grams or less, and that you're doing a lot better. It sounds like you are doing a lot better. You deserve a lot of credit for having figured that out. And I think there are a lot of listeners who might be caught up in the same trap that you might have helped out tremendously just by telling that story and sharing how you did it. And now you're dealing with the weight gain. And when the weight gain is there is this fear of being judged when you go out, especially if you haven't seen people for a while. Because of the pathways that you woke up, there is this fear of being surrounded by all the food and all of the social factors that cause us to want to eat what everybody else is eating. And eating is a very bonding experience. Warring tribes prove to each other that they're not there to rape and pillage, but they're there to make friends and form alliances or allegiances by breaking bread together. There are a lot more things very primitively baked into these social situations that make us want to eat what everybody else is eating. It's not just because they want to eat it also. It's because it's kind of the fabric of society. Like you could also think about way back when we lived in small tribes and probably every member's labor was necessary for the survival of the tribe. And we didn't have all this abundance and variety of food available. There was a hunt or a gathering, and usually there was one food, right? And if you refused to eat it, you could become weak and sick and maybe put your tribe at risk. I think that back then it was more like, not what would you like to have for dinner tonight, but you're going to eat this or we're going to kill you, right? So there's an awful lot of pressure that you're experiencing. And there's nothing wrong with you. It's a common part of the trap, but there are solutions. We're going to work our way out of that. So the first step is to figure out what normal behavior would look like. Just like you figured out as simple as possible of a rule, one simple rule to help you with the intake of sugar, we need to maybe make a socialization rule for you that's as simple as possible so that you're kind of forcing yourself into these situations and you can deal with it a little at a time. And then once we lay that down, your lizard brain is going to tell you all types of reasons why it's going to make you break your sugar rule when you get there. But we'll deal with that. I want to lay it down and get those on the table on purpose. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. If you think about the next couple of months, we're coming into the holidays soon. How often would you socialize? What's the minimum amount you would socialize that would make you feel like you were being a normal person and kind of forcing yourself into this next stage of recovering from this problem?
Most of the weekend, I'm out seeing friends, doing different activities. And then it's mainly about the weeknights, is where I have the tendency to either make a choice about socializing or isolating. So I'd say like 2 to 3 nights a week meeting up with friends would feel like a really good spot. And then 2 to 3 nights a week hanging out with myself would feel good.
Okay. So Monday to Friday, you want to spend 2 of those nights with friends?
Yes,
What if at minimum you said that I will never spend less than 2 weekday nights per calendar week with friends?
I like that. I think maybe I almost feel like it should be I'm just trying to think of situations like if I'm traveling and I'm not with other people, maybe just to modify it to never spend less than 2 nights a week.
Unless you're traveling.
That could work, yeah.
Okay. Is there any other situation where it wouldn't be possible to spend 2 nights a week with friends?
I don't think so.
Okay. If you think of it as we go along, we'll do that. That's your bullseye. That's what you want to aim for. If you take a breath and ask yourself, what would that do for you? Let's say all the way through New Year's, you spend 2 weekday nights a week with friends, unless you were traveling. What would be different in January?
I think that I would be feeling a lot better, like mental health wise, about investing in my community. And there's a rational part of me that knows that if I have my binging under control, I know that I will naturally reach a healthier weight that feels good to me. And I think if I can spend that minimum of 2 nights a week socializing and see that change, that I'm going to have so much more confidence and hope that I haven't developed these habits that are forever. I can change this and have the really rich social life and community that I want.
So if you spend 2 nights a week socializing and you stick to your 25 grams of refined sugar, you stick to that rule. How much weight would you have lost by January? Would you have more energy? And what would be the manifestations of your better mental health? How would I know that you were feeling better if I spent a day with you then as opposed to now?
It's hard to put an exact number on it, but I think I would guess at least 10 to 15 pounds lighter. I think the main thing with my mental health is that I would just feel a lot steadier rather than going through these cycles of feeling really, really low and then having this renewed energy to say, like, okay, this time I'm turning it around, and then come at that with a lot of energy and then eventually fall back into the trap. I think like that is a really exhausting cycle. And so just going more slowly and knowing that this time this is a change forever. And so even if I'm going more slowly, the point is that I'm going in the same direction the whole time. I think the main thing with the socializing is that hopefully I would default to like talking to and engaging with friends as a coping mechanism rather than pigging out on sweets.
Okay. Does that picture seem appealing to you?
It really does.
What would happen, not in January, but let's say in about 5 years, if you let the lizard brain keep doing what it's been doing? If you kept isolating more, you didn't socialize with friends twice a week, what would happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have this model from quite a few people in my family, unfortunately. And I think it would mean really narrowing my world and having a lot fewer friends. Like in the moment, I tell myself this narrative that they don't like me because of the weight gain, but I know rationally that is not true at all. It's because I choose to isolate myself because of it and then have these nasty voices. Yeah, if I don't make this change, I worry that I'll either just continue going off the deep end in these cycles of like gaining more, indulging more, and just feeling worse and worse, or I'll default back to the cycle I was in of overexercising, overeating, but then feeling very isolated and alone.
Are we going to fully commit to never having more than 25 grams of refined sugar and never less than 2 weeknights with friends unless you're traveling?
Yes. Can I modify the language on the second one? Because I think I figured out exactly how to say it so it feels
Please,
like
please.
100%. I want to say no less than 2 weekday nights socializing. Because when I travel, I'm still very social. It's just, for me, it's like they're not necessarily friends.
Oh, okay.
But I still want to commit myself to being out with other people, even if it just means like going to a new restaurant or something and being surrounded by other people. That is even enough of redirection from the isolation.
Say, well, I will never socialize less than 2 weekday nights per week.
Yes.
That's much simpler. I like that. Good thinking.
Yes, I really took to heart the piece you said about making it as simple as possible. And that I feel like even when I committed to doing this call and now that was kind of a big change in my mindset the last week and a half or so.
Beautiful. Has been working better?
It really has. It's been interesting. I'd say, like, on a typical day, I'm eating a little bit more than I normally would, but because I don't feel like any risk of binging, I think, like, over a full week period, it's actually so much less.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Shall we give your lizard brain a chance now? Are you feeling confident this is the right plan and you have the right motivation?
Yes.
So, why does your lizard brain say, give me all the reasons it says that you can't or shouldn't or won't be able to stick to this? Less than 25 grams of refined sugar per day, and that you will never socialize less than 2 weekdays per calendar week.
Yeah, the main pushback is that there are going to be times where the only options for socializing will mean going somewhere where I'm exposed to a lot of really tempting foods and I just won't be able to say no. I typically don't drink at all during the week, and I think that's my other fear is that if I start committing to a lot more regular socialization that I will start drinking a lot more, but I know I don't have to do that. So
Hmm? Do you need to have something that reminds you how much you can drink, or you don't want to do that?
I don't think so. I think this is just the lizard message that I need to push back on.
Do you find that when you drink that you have trouble following your other rules?
Uh, Maybe a bit, yeah.
Do you know the difference between a guideline and a rule?
I think so, but I wouldn't mind you reiterating.
Well, in Defeat Your Cravings, we have two sets of controls. We have rules, and those are like traffic lights and stop signs. You're not supposed to run through them, right? A red light is a red light is a red light. A stop sign is a stop sign is a stop sign. But a guideline is more like a yield sign that reminds you to be careful. The difference in the enforcement techniques available to us are that if we have a rule that says, I will never again eat more than 25 grams of refined sugar, then the moment we hear a thought in our head that suggests that we cross that very bright line, we can say, wait a minute, that's not me, that's the lizard brain. And let me ask it why it wants me to do this and how do I refute that? When you're using a yield sign, then the line isn't really as clear. So it's a little harder to distinguish between you and your lizard brain's thoughts. And so as a result, you're not allowed to torture yourself if you make a mistake. You're not supposed to torture yourself if you make a mistake anyway. But, if you push a yield sign a little bit, well, you push the yield sign a little bit. You didn't really break your plan. You didn't break the law. But if you push your red light, then, that's a much kind of more quote unquote serious offense that you take more seriously. So what I was going to suggest, if you want to, is that you create a guideline and you put it right underneath these two rules, which you read every day. And maybe the guideline says something like, I'll never have more than one drink an hour when I'm out socializing, or I won't have more than two drinks. Or most women tell me if they have more than one or two drinks that they can't keep to their rules. So that's where I get those numbers from, but you know yourself better. And it's just a guideline, so you can break it if you want to, but you're still reading it every day and reminding yourself. What do you think?
I think that's a good idea because I think these are guidelines. Again, like I know if I'm naturally listening to my body and thinking about what I want, these are things that I naturally am drawn to. So they don't feel difficult to enforce for that reason.
Okay, so what would the guideline be?
Um, I think the guideline would be that I, like on weeknights, would only have one drink.
Okay, so I'm phrasing this different than I would phrase a rule. So this is, as opposed to I never will, we say I try to limit myself to one drink per weekday night.
Yes.
Okay, I try to limit myself to one drink on weekdays. Okay. Why else does your lizard brain say that you can't or won't or shouldn't be able to stick to your rules?
I think the main one, especially like you said with the holidays coming up, is that I'm somehow going to experience these social events less if I am not participating in eating the special things that were made by so and so.
Okay, you want to enjoy the special events nearly as much with that junk,
Yes.
with that special junk that they make,
Yes.
special holiday junk. Okay, is there anything else that your reptilian brain is saying why you can't do this?
I don't think so. That's really the big one.
I'd like to suggest a principle that the reptilian brain wins by providing a justification, which is usually consists of a half truth with a bigger lie. And if you can find the lies, then you can remove the justification. It becomes a lot easier to stick to the plan. So I'm going to take these in reverse. When your reptilian brain says you can't enjoy these special events nearly as much without the special holiday junk, you're really going to be missing out. Where's the truth in that and where's the lie?
The truth in that is that I do feel a lot of joy from being like fed and cared for by the people that I love. But the lie is that one, the food is not the important part for like socializing and connecting with the people I love. And that do it in moderation so that things don't go out of control. Like have a small taste and say, like, that was lovely, but I'm going to feed myself in the way that really nourishes me and know that that's not offending anybody and that it's my choice to treat my body how I want to. And the people that I really love and care about me will understand that and support it.
Can you do that within your 25-gram rule?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't need to adjust that for the holidays.
No, because I realized I had thought about having exceptions, but they really felt like it was more like the lizard sneaking in. And for me, just having a hard rule that, for example, like our swim group gets together all the time and people will bring a bunch of different baked goods. So what that rule means for me is that I choose one small thing. That's it. I choose one thing that I want to enjoy and really cherish. And then otherwise, I'm fueling myself in the way that really feels good.
Beautiful. Caitlin, is there any argument to be made that you'd actually enjoy these events more knowing that you had it under control and you could be more present with people?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing I'm excited about is to like rewire that part of my thinking because I'm really tired of the fear and apprehension before these events and feeling like I can't go do that because I'll go out of control. And it's funny because I look around at other friends that are naturally doing the same thing that I'm suggesting, like picking one small thing to enjoy and then otherwise eating very healthy. And I think about the way that I view them, all of those negative thoughts that I expect other people will think of me, they don't even cross my mind. So yeah, I'm really excited to get to the place where I can go with a lot less of this like burden of fear and just enjoy being in the moment with these people and know that it's not about the food at all.
I love it. Your reptilian brain also said that you will inevitably go someplace where you'll be exposed to really tempting foods, and therefore you can't keep to these rules. Where's the lie in that?
The lie in that is basically that like I don't have to take anything that's offered to me just because it's offered to me. I think that's the main piece.
So it might be true that you'll be exposed to tempting foods. You can acknowledge that.
Yes.
It might be true that you feel cravings, but it's not true that you have to overindulge or break your rule.
Yes.
You can have a taste. You can say, it really would be delicious if I had that, but I'm capable of refraining from certain short-term pleasures so I can pursue other short-term and long-term pleasures. Because like Peter McWilliams said, you can't have everything you want, but you could have anything you want.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
I always like that line. I noticed that your lizard brain didn't say anything about you're going to have to stay home and isolate and go to town with sugar. Why didn't it say anything about that? Did we overcome that somehow, or is it hiding?
I think if I overcome the fear of going out will lead to an overindulgence, then the fear of feeling like I have to stay home and indulge doesn't appear.
So you were really more afraid of the impulses and the temptation more so than people's judgments.
I think so. It's really more, yeah, like having a controlled environment.
Okay. Are you going to eat before you go out? Are you going to make sure you're well nourished before you get there? Or do you feel like you'll be able to nourish yourself at these events?
I think that I'm good at prepping for myself, and I think the main thing is probably when I go to these events, bringing other options.
Oh, so if you're going to a potluck, you need to bring something that's healthy for you.
Well, or just having like snacks. Yeah, having snacks available.
What would that be?
I mean, I really like a lot of veggies, and I'm going to a potluck this weekend, and usually I'm the one that like bakes for people and stuff. And instead, I said I'd really like to bring a veggie platter. And so knowing that that will be there and I can just like happily munch on whatever veggies I want the whole time is making me feel a lot more comfortable.
That's one of my tricks too. I love that. Sometimes I bring a pound of grapes or a pound of berries or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how confident do you feel that you're never going to have more than 25 grams of sugar per day and that you are never going to socialize less than 2 weekdays per week between, let's say, now and January 2nd?
I'm feeling really confident and like weirdly excited about picturing what kind of future that means.
Wonderful. Is that 100% confident or are you still
I
nervous?
think I'm there. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I can say I'm 100% confident that I'm never going to have more than 25 grams of sugar in 24 hours and that I will socialize at least 2 nights a week.
Just take a breath and be sure. Make sure your reptilian brain's not saying anything else.
Yep, I feel good about this.
Good for you, Caitlin. I think we got it. I think we got it all. Do you have any questions or concerns?
Not at the moment. Yeah, you can't see that I'm smiling, but I'm really smiling
That's
about this one.
fantastic. I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
Yeah, I feel good about it. So thank you.
Okay, maybe you let me know in a couple of months how you're doing, okay?
That sounds great. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Glenn.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. If you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.